So I will call this meeting to order. And Cindy, please share your screen. And she has a flag image, and we will rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the
To the
flag,
flag,
the United States of
United States of
America,
America,
and
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
under God,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty
justice for all.
and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy. I recognize Joe hasn't joined, but he seems to somehow be a little late, but I'm sure he will join us. First, we have correspondence. We have a thank you note from Pat Windsor, thanking the trustees and thanking us for the gift certificate we gave her. I happen to know that she really enjoyed that. Actually, she and Terry went to Mel's together, so they had a nice evening. And then I also want to share the letter, which I know we all received late today from Chief Cavalieri, the letter from Hilda Wilcox commending Officer Katie Mulcair for her quick response. And I think that is something that was so evident when we did the police reform meetings and put that plan together, that we really do have a community police force, and they are often first responders. This is my antique computer, and I apologize. Every now and then my video goes off. Like that. I'll keep trying. Now we have review of minutes, and I know I sent some minutes corrections, as did Cindy. I don't know if anybody has any others. But if not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 25th meeting with the corrections submitted?
So moved.
By Max, seconded by Jean. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Jane is on, and we do have in our packet the her report, and specifically we're going to take some actions on some things tonight. But I also want to put out that we were emailed the minutes for HPAR, Planning Board, and ZBA prior to this meeting. So first, were there any questions at all, as long as Jane is here, on anything on the zoning report, official report, other than what we're going to be discussing pertaining to the special use permit? Any questions on anything?
Well, and you're referring to the walk-up window, right? MD or Cooperstown.
No, well, that is one of the things we'll be discussing later, but I didn't know if there was anything else. I know Joe had a question on something, but I don't see him on here yet, so he may join us.
Joe is having problem with the link. I'm going to send it to him again right now.
Okay, fine.
I had the same question Joe had, so I'll ask it.
Okay.
About Pioneer Street, Stagecoach's plan to put up a vent in instead of a window. There was a little concern.
They're required by the health department. I don't know whether it's the health department or code or whatever to put a vent in, and because of the situation with the restaurant on the first floor, it was easier to do a vent out of the side as opposed to trying to run something through the second floor all the way up to the roof.
I guess the concern is we've had problems with another establishment in the village with that same kind of vent, with complaints of noise. So I just, hopefully that'll be addressed.
I'm not really sure what kind of options there are as far as what possibilities that they can do. This is in a commercial or the business district as opposed to a PDD in the residential district.
Yeah.
So noise wise, I'm not anticipating it to cause an issue, but I guess it's, one of those things that it's part of the part of the process of operating a restaurant. So.
Right. Can we just make sure as I get, as they proceed on that, they did give approval, right, already?
Yes, they did.
But there were no kind of restrictions on it. But I guess, could you just keep an eye on that, Jane, to see if there are any subsequent complaints?
Sure.
Thank you. Is there anything else? If not, we will move on to the special use permit application, and that would be for the Oxley property on Pioneer Street. And Cindy was nice enough, because I know some of you might not have been through a village board special permit process. So she sent several pages on our regulations pertaining to that, which I think will be helpful. What's important to know tonight is that we're not making any, quote, decisions tonight. We, as the sort of receiving body, the Board of Trustees, will now be sending it on to our other boards, planning, HPARB, et cetera. But we can put some, things that we would like them in particular to look at. And, they will be looking, obviously, at the site and the layout, etc. But I know what I was thinking of, and Cindy also had a couple ideas of things that we, in particular, when it is referred to those committees, that we be sure that they have and that we ultimately have. And that includes a 3D street view. So it would take in the adjoining properties and the structures on those properties, height-wise, et cetera. A little bit, is it possible to do some viewscapes, that sort of thing? I would also ask that the board consider acquiring a $2,000 escrow account for this application. The reason being, and you got all the documents on it, one of the pages clearly showed the 2 village easements on that property. And obviously nothing can be built, no structure can be built on them. But they would have the possibility of, as is depicted in the one image, of putting a driveway there. But should there be some reason we have to dig up that utility, we would want it very clear that, it's on the owner's, has to totally reconstruct his planting bed, his driveway, whatever, because that is our easement. So the escrow would allow the village to pay the legal fees to have that, those agreements drawn up, and also recorded with the deed. So we wouldn't ever have issues sort of down the road. In addition, Cindy and I were thinking that they should really make sure that they do a good examination of drainage and like stormwater runoff, et cetera, on the site. So those are things that we want the boards to be thinking about. I don't think I had anything else. Did you think of anything else, Cindy, you'd like to add, or anyone else that in particular we would like our boards to be thinking about? Jim? Jim, I can't hear you. Can I? Oh.
It says he's unmuted, but.
Jim, for some reason, we're not hearing you, even though it does say you're not muted.
Jim, I'll type you some directions and put them in the chat. It might help.
Yeah, even on there, it doesn't look like it. While we're waiting for Jim, did anyone else have any comment they'd like to make? Okay. You can also, Jim, do you want to type something in the chat box if you can't get your microphone to work? Because, we're not in a rush. We would love to hear your comment. Oh, okay. So Jane, this would be one, Jim is concerned that the building that's shown on the site exceeds the setbacks.
Okay, it's kind of tricky. I'm not sure whether you guys can call up one of the things that I sent out to everybody. This would be the package that went out on Friday afternoon.
You probably have it right there. Kyle could have you share his screen.
Am I allowed to share? If I can share, I can pull it up.
Yeah, I think, let's see, did Kyle let you share?
Yep, okay, hold on.
All right.
Kyle, Joe is having problems. Did you try contacting him? He says he can't get the link from me.
Okay, just to kind of give everybody an idea how this works, when the zoning chapter got redone at the end of 2019, we created different districts and we added some new features in the setback requirements. Now, what they are showing on their plan is taking advantage of the percentage rule that we allow for side yards and front yards as opposed to a physical number. Because of the width of the property, which the lot does meet the minimum width, we have for a side yard setback either a 20% or 20-foot requirement for the principal structure and a 10% or 10-foot. And because of the lot width, the distances for the setbacks are less than the physical normal dimensions, which wasn't allowed previous to the code change in 2019. So what they're showing meets the requirements. It's just using the percentage calculations as opposed to the direct number calculations. The only thing I haven't looked at is the actual physical lot coverage. I'm assuming they meet it. I never actually ran any numbers for that yet, but they're still kind of in the process of working out a final design that before they go to HCARD. So, but does that answer your questions, Jim?
I think it was Jim. Let's see. If you stop sharing, I can't see Jim at the moment. Is Jim, let's see. Jim. Okay, yes, he's fine. He that makes a lot of sense. And that was very helpful. Thank you, Jane, for that explanation. It was great. Are there any other questions or concerns? No? All right, and I think we have to, do we approve the establishment of the escrow? Do we have to do that probably? Yes, so I enumerated those things that we would like to see as we send it on to our various boards. And again, it's we want to be sure they pay attention to the drainage issues or stormwater runoff. We want to have a 3D street view with adjacent structures and sight lines included in it. We're going to require a $2,000 escrow account and to ensure that the agreements pertaining to the easements on that property are created and recorded with the deed. So that is the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Cindy. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Can I ask one question about the 3D views? Are those views that you want to see in your committee, or is that something for HBAR?
They may want them too and have them, but we want to make sure we get them too. Yeah.
So you would like them by next month for the public hearing?
We
If
probably,
possible.
Jane, we have time, and I'm not 100% sure we'll be setting the public hearing because we want to hear back from all our boards, and I imagine that being
Okay.
done in March. So I would envision an April public hearing on this.
Okay, so you want or you want comments from the other boards for next month's meeting?
And I want to see what they've kind of developed, yeah,
Okay.
and what they,
Okay.
in their discussions, because it
Okay.
might give us something else we want to act on. Thank you. All right, and there's another thing, which is the Bank of Cooperstown, and we had Jane provided and Jenna sent around, so everybody has that. Most of you were not on the board when the PDD for the Bank of Cooperstown was established. It was 2017. But what they are asking for now, so you received both the local law filing, which basically stipulated uses, and one of them is banking or any use permissible within the R3 zone. So this is a use relative to a bank. What they're asking for is kind of an outside teller window, and you receive the drawing of that and where it would be situated on the front facade. So we thought it would be good. It could just potentially go to HPAR, but it would be good to have, since this was, I think this was our first PDD, wasn't it? Yes. It's good to come back to us and see if there's any thoughts or discussions on that teller window. Any?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, Ellen. It is, I believe, one of the only banks in the village that doesn't have a drive-through, so I think it could be, useful for them. I would be willing to support it.
Mm-hmm. Key Bank doesn't have one, by the way.
One of the options they were hoping for.
KeyBank, that's the one.
One of the options they were hoping for was the possibility of creating a drive-through, but that would mean that the parking for the apartment and an entrance off of Elm Street would have to be created. And I said that would probably be somewhat hard for the board to approve. So they said this was their second option, is to create a walk-up window instead.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. Where is this? Under what page on what report?
It wasn't in any report because it came to me at the end of the day on Friday.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So
this came,
I'm sorry, the documents were emailed to you before this meeting.
Okay.
Jenna made sure everybody got it.
I can pull that one up too if you want to see it.
Yeah, why don't you do that? It'd be better at this point. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that one. I'm sorry.
Right. So right now, this is a solid brick wall here, and they're
Yeah.
proposing to create the sidewalk with like a drive-up window, but it's for
Walk-up window.
pedestrians.
Walk-up window.
So.
Okay.
Jim,
just
are you raising your hand for something? I don't know if your sound's working, but you could always put a question in the chat box if you want.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, Eureka!
Yeah, I pushed the right button. Yeah, regarding that, and I understand the situation. My only question is, how would that affect any other business in the business district that would like to do business from the sidewalk?
Well, they would still be on their property because they would leave the village sidewalk and walk up to the building. So I believe it's, 10, 15 feet to the face of the building from the sidewalk. So they're technically not on public property.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it would set a precedent. I agree with Jim on that, but I agree that this should go forward.
I'm not against it. It's a reasonable idea.
I think that precedent may already be set if you think of ice cream shops on Main Street and in Doubleday Field area that sell
Yes, from windows.
sell from their
Exactly.
windows.
I want a window in the pizzeria,
And
I was
This
just
is-
thinking that, Richard.
just like when I was a kid.
Okay, I think, Joe, were you trying to speak, Joe?
I was just trying to see if I was present in the room because I've lost the connection and I just tapped the link on my cell phone, so I don't know. I take it I can be heard now, so that's fine. Yeah.
Yep. And you can hear us, right?
Yes, I can. I have been for the last 10 minutes or so. So.
Okay. So any questions on this particular issue?
No, I think I take Jane's point that this is not a sidewalk vending. This is walking up to the window off on private property. I think that's a distinction with a difference.
All right. Shall we make this, I'm sorry, Cindy?
I was gonna say, do we need a formal motion to recognize that this walk-up window is within the use that's currently permitted in the PDD under banking?
I think it would be good, is we've had the discussion, we've looked at this, and I think for the record, it's important to
It wouldn't
have.
hurt.
So.
And so I would make that motion and add to the fact that the walk-up window is a use that is already permitted within the PDD under banking, and furthermore, does not expand the footprint of the building, which was one of the criteria for that PDD.
All right, so there's the motion, seconded by Richard. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
I have one final question on that though, because I know that one of the things they had mentioned to me was the possibility of some kind of an awning roof covering over
Oh.
the window. Would that be, it's not increasing the footprint at all. It's just kind of
That would be up to
extending an
planning
overhang.
board.
so.
I think
It
it's
would be up to
probably up
planning
to
board and
H-
HPARB.
HPAR, but, and I hope they would keep the visual of that building in mind, because looking at that front facade, it's a little hard to imagine a separate awning in one part of it, but
Right. Yeah, it probably would be a permanent thing. And would that awning be within the setback? I know there have been issues with that sort of structure being added on to a building before. And does that make a difference in a PUD or a PDD?
I don't have any official or final ideas as far as what they're proposing, so I'm assuming they're not anticipating something fairly deep, but it would just be enough to kind of cover the one person that's standing at the window, maybe trying to, do the transaction. But they did not have it. They mentioned it in the email that I had gotten on Friday, but they did not provide me with any information on it. So it would be going forward to HPARB just to kind of finalize this. I know that per our code, we allow for 2-foot eaves to project into setbacks. So I would assume that if nothing else, they should be allowed to create something that would be that depth and not have to worry about any kind of variances. But that would, there again, it's up to you guys, I guess.
Could you go
Any
back to the
thoughts?
picture of the
Sure.
elevation?
front facade.
please? An awning does not work there at all.
I think they were talking about just kind of building, something like this out, or, some kind of a projection either here or here that's just a horizontal projection that just covers the window a little more than what's there. So
It
it
would
wasn't, it's not an awning per se as far as, the canvas kind of thing. It's just a, roof covering of some sort.
And it would be over the horizontal window
The
accent.
transom.
Yeah, okay.
Most likely, I don't know whether they could do anything in this depth here.
I don't think it would be satisfactory there visually, but
No, I
Mhm.
think
Any-
anything that projects out is going to change. Anything that just projects out at that one spot is going to really destroy the building lines. That's up to HPARB, I guess, first.
Mhm.
yeah. So Jane, you'll be presenting or working with them on this. I think if you just convey that our feeling is it should be in that horizontal band, and if it almost is the same width or something and just
Yep.
projects out from there, then I think it would be less visually obtrusive as you look at the building, but it's totally within their HBAR's bailiwick.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jane? Before you disappear, I had one. I know later under finance, we're going to be approving the New York Planning Federation zoning invoice for $270. I know we joined that a couple of years ago, and there's like 6 logons that, there was a certain number that we got with that license. And I was just wondering.
I was told that pretty much anybody has access. That
Okay.
is part of the village. And one of the nice things that a couple of the members have definitely used is since COVID, they've been doing all of their seminars that are certified, for planning and zoning online that are only open to registered members. So I know that at least there's been one that several people attended last month or a couple weeks ago. So
Fabulous. That's all I wanted to make sure is that it was being accessed and utilized by our boards. So great.
Ellen, I have a question for Jane along the same vein. Can you describe for us the GSI software, how that we're going to renew the license for? I can imagine how important it is to your work, but it'd be helpful for people to know it.
It's something that you guys started, you purchased the actual software years before I started. This is just a maintenance package to maintain the current, up-to-date things. It's the material, it's the program that I use to create the zoning map. It acts, it not only creates a graphic image, it also works with data so that, you can actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the GIS program for the county, but it's the same kind of thing. You can actually pick on a lot and the information as far as what is available for owner-wise, things like that. We are not totally up to date because that information would come from the county, and I haven't updated that one yet, but it's not necessarily something that would have to be extended if you guys didn't want to. But it's just.
I'm very much in favor of it. I think these GIS programs are, when we were doing our housing review, I think what you were producing was in part using that software. No?
Yes, it was.
No, that's extremely important. I just thought it would be beneficial for people to hear what it does. But that's all. Yeah, I'm not questioning it. I'm in support of it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jane? If not, thank you, Jane. That was appreciated for making your report.
No problem. Bye.
Moving on, we have police committee. That we were in our packets. We had a report from the police committee on calls that they'd had last month. We also received one from the fire department and from EMS. So
the EMS one, I'm still trying to make heads or tails out of, but I will get back. I'll get back with Eric on that. The key thing that we wanted to find out is where, especially with EMS and fire, how many calls are we getting out of the air, out of Cooperstown, and how often are Cooperstown calls being taken by out of area companies? And that's what I was trying to get, but I still don't quite have that information.
okay,
So,
he did send, of the 33 calls, obviously 12 were beyond Cooperstown. That we do know. Yeah. All right.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
to Richard?
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe this is the usual 51 traffic stops and 18 tickets. Is that just depends on the outcome of the traffic stop, or?
I think that was by the state police. They've been putting up speed traps around Cooperstown. lately. And I've seen them in Cooperstown. I don't know that that's coming from our own police. I'll
I
have
think
to
it
ask
is.
Frank.
Okay,
think-
I see. So that's the total traffic stops, not necessarily all by the village.
Right.
Yeah,
It just
may I-
seemed like kind of a low number, 51 traffic stops and only 18 tickets. But if that's only our department, then I suppose that makes more sense.
I have a question about the report relating to indirectly to staffing. At the foot of the report, it says that 15 8-hour shifts were not covered. So my question is, given the number of calls that came in and were handled by our police department, it suggests to me that no calls went unheeded if there were 0 by the state and 3 handled by the sheriff's department. Am I missing something about?
No,
But those
Oh,
would have,
wait.
you're right,
Oh,
Joe. Somebody responded to every call, and it looks like only 3 out of the entire month had to be handled by the sheriff.
Rich, you sure that number is right on 18? Because if there were zero,
I'm
by the
relying on
state
what
police-
Frank gave me.
Oh, okay.
did-
Maybe
I
it's a
did-
typo. Because I thought what you had said that would have been 0 by the state police, 3 by the sheriff's. I don't know. It just seems low. I'm surprised.
It's calls.
Maybe
Well,
we
the
just
state police only take calls in the middle of the night, primarily. The rest of
I'm
the
just
time is
talking
by.
about specifically traffic stops, not
No,
calls.
this
Yeah.
should have been set up differently. This should have really been set up differently. The traffic stops are separate from the calls. At least as I understand it. They are independent. They are initiated by the police. The calls are initiated by a phone call. So we had
Sure.
37 calls. The breakdown of them is below. We had 51 traffic stops, but only 18 tickets written. I can go back with Frank, but I suspect a lot of those are state police hanging out on the edge where our speed limit changes rapidly from 50 to 30. I keep seeing them there during the day.
I think that, okay, so it says 37 calls handled by CPD. If you start that breakdown of the calls and add up those, that
Yep.
comes to 37. They're enumerating what the 37
Yeah,
was.
right.
Separate and distinct from those, there were 51 traffic stops, and I don't think that they're handling. I don't think that's recognizing what the sheriff or anybody else did. The village police did 51 traffic stops,
Really?
and 18 traffic tickets were written.
All
That
right.
is,
Does
that's
that
not
seem
a,
low, or am I mistaken?
no,
That's high.
not necessarily. I can
Maybe
tell
we
you
just
that
have
my husband,
generous
my
and
husband
forgiving
was-
officers.
I'm sorry,
Never mind.
very forgiving officers. Maybe there was some clarification on it. I don't know. We'd need more information on that, but they are, they have it in their prerogative to give warnings.
Right, and I am not questioning the statistics. I want to be clear, and I appreciate their being assembled. I'm just looking at the discussion of whether for budget purposes, we need more staffing if these statistics report, and this is just admittedly 1 month, we seem to have things in hand. So
What they responded to when they were on, that amount is what I brought up under our first budget meeting, if you recall, when we were discussing the presently unfunded, unfilled officer position, that there were 15 8-hour shifts not covered in, I believe that was the month of December or January that he gave us. Yeah, January. So if you figure they're filled, those numbers could be higher.
Well, that's my question. Does the phone go unanswered so we don't know calls didn't get answered, or if there are, these were the 37 calls that came in the month, even if they came in after hours?
The calls never go unanswered.
It immediately rolls over.
Right, but, and so in that event, only 3 rolled over to the sheriff's department and 0 went to the state police.
Richard, will you please get greater clarification? Because
I will.
basically they don't really get the information on, if they weren't there at 3 o'clock in the morning and someone calls, it'll immediately go to the police department, and those statistics will not be in this document. But thank you, Richard, for getting this information in the first place and for getting a little more clarity on it. Thank you.
I'll have a meeting with Frank,
Thank
or
you.
a discussion with Frank.
All right.
I mean, I do like that he gave us the breakdown of the calls, even if he spelled break wrong, but that's all right.
No, I agree. I found this very helpful as we're thinking about a police force to see the types of calls that they respond to. And, in terms of the numbers, I think it's important to keep in mind that this is January during a pandemic, when, everything on Main Street is closed by 10. So we hope that situation becomes different by the time we get to the summer.
And you also have to remember, I mean, it's anecdotal, but one of those calls saved a life. So that may not have happened if we didn't have our police force there.
Right. So thank you for that report, Richard.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to finance. Joe?
Thank you, Ellen. In your packet, as usual, we have the retirement, the LoSAP statement. Ellen and I guess it was I the other day, did the bank reconciliations, and the sales tax report came in just by email this afternoon as soon as Jenna got it, and we're December over December, we're down $4,500 in a share of tax receipts from the county. We have to approve, and I move that we do the renewal for $400 of the ESRI zoning software license. You heard how Jane uses that in her work. May I have a second for that?
Second.
There any questions? Then Ellen, I guess you could call the question.
I thought everyone, okay.
Everything's okay with it? All right.
You need a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
A second. I'm in favor. And this sponsor approval form, I guess we have to complete that with the eligible staff.
So this we get every single year, and this is largely used to determine the fire department members, squad members, et cetera, who have been active, because they have to log a certain number of hours. So you all were sent that information separately. It was quite a big packet. So hopefully you looked it all over, and all you're being asked at this point is to acknowledge that you looked that over, you reviewed, and you approved it, because obviously our PenFlex payment is based on that. So if you saw some wild discrepancies, that would have been the time. I know that we only need 4 trustees besides me to approve and sign this. I know sometimes we have abstentions because there are family members on that department.
Yeah, I plan to abstain.
Yeah, so Cindy is abstained. And
I will certainly approve. I looked at it. I thought everything was in order.
yeah, so everything. So, okay, well, let's begin this way. All those in favor of approving the award, this service award program per the documents you were emailed, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now here's the other thing. 4 of you have to physically go to the village office and sign this form. So which 4 will do that?
I'll do that.
Joe,
I'll do
Jean,
that.
Mac, and Jim. Those are the 4. All right, that's perfect. Thank you.
And the next item, 6, is our insurance invoice for the fire department and EMS of $19,367.85, which I move we approve payment of.
Moved by Joe, second by
Second.
Cindy, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you know, it's important to note that it's it's like $1,500 less than our premium last year, so.
Thank you. The next item is the New York Planning Federation. We discussed that with Jane, the $270 annual dues. I move approval of that as well.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Cindy, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
Also, moving personnel or the overtime analysis, the leave analysis, and the payroll variance reports, which are extensive documents in your packet. And we have abstracts and transfers also in the packet that I move be approved.
Moved by Joe, second by Cindy, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion to accept the finance report
So moved.
by
Second.
Richard, second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Right, moving on. Mitch is on, and you know, he can answer any questions you have. There were some questions, as I shared today, about the change orders. But at this point, I'll just move through them. One, we need to approve the change order number 6 from Delaware Engineering for the contract time extension. I make that motion, second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm sorry, if you still have a question, even after the explanatory email, please just stop me and ask. I move we approve change order number 7 from Delaware Engineering for the general construction modifications at a cost equal to $21,562.
So moved.
Second by Joe, all in favor? Aye.
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 We need to approve the pay up number 17 to Eastman Associates in the amount of $27,481.60. So moved. Second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
And then there were 2 invoices that Jenna sent around today that had come in late. One was for the wastewater treatment plant, Delaware Engineering. Their invoice number 51 in the amount of $27,000, $128.45. That's the motion to pay that, and seconded by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think I got all those. And then, is there anything else, any questions on the wastewater treatment plant before we move on to Doubleday? No? All right, moving on to Doubleday, we had an invoice come in for basically putting together the value engineered engineering drawings so that we could go to bid. It's Delaware Engineering invoice number 4 for $43,073.25. I move that we pay that. Second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Can I weigh in on Doubleday for a second?
Totally, go for it.
If anybody is interested, we're having a site visit with contractors on Wednesday at 2 at Doubleday.
I'll be there, Mitch.
All right, sounds good.
As you all know, we went to bid. We had approved that, and we went to bid at the beginning of February. The bid opening will be March 3rd at 2 p.m. And so we know quite a few contractors who have picked up the documents. So this is kind of exciting. I don't know if there's anything to report on TEP.
I have a little bit of a report on TEP as far as the locking mechanisms for the winches for the banner poles.
Yes.
Which have been on back order since at least November. I got word today that they were delivered and they have been in Texas since February 11th, and they are stranded there due to the snowstorm.
These locking mechanisms will someday appear in the village of Cooperstown, and our vice grips holding our banners will disappear. It'll be an exciting, jubilant day. Moving on. I'm sorry, moving on, Grove Street Culvert Project. Very exciting. All our projects seem to be, you know, a little logjam broke there. We need to authorize the Village of Cooperstown to go to bid on our Grove Street Culvert Project.
So
I am
moved.
happy to make that motion.
Cindy, I
Second.
wanted Cindy to make the motion. Second by Mac. All in favor?
Aye.
And we've moved right along on the historic preservation. Our Skylight Project grant is all, the little pieces are in place. So we need to authorize the Village of Cooperstown to go to bid for our 22 Main Street Skylight Project. Cindy, do you want to do it again? Oh, I want Cindy to make the motion. she was the one who lined up some of our funding, so it's important. So seconded by you, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Yay. I don't think there's anything new to report on the downtown Wi-Fi project. Elevator replacement project, that's still kind of ongoing. I don't know if you want to say anything. Lakefront Pier project, not only did, I had reported last month that finally our master contract was all in place, but they also approved our contract with Delta Engineering. So I move that we approve payment of Delta Engineering's invoice in the amount of $12,754.
So moved.
That was I saw Jean's hand go up, and I'll let her. Second by Jean. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next thing in your packet is the form that we need to certify. And this pertains to the police reform collaborative plan. As you all know, I think the village did a good job. We had trustees Jean and Richard on our community advisory board. We met every other week throughout the fall. Really did a good job with our homework. And on January 6th, you all had the opportunity over the course of several hours to review the reform plan and also the use of force policy, to which you made corrections and edits. Those were sent back to all of you, and the corrected form of the reform plan and the use of force policy have been up on our village website for over a month now, entertaining public comment. Chief Cavalieri and I did a Friends of Village Library law enforcement reform plan presentation on February 10th, and there were quite a few questions, and that was good. We really enjoyed that. I hope you got to see that. It's all recorded if you didn't. And the following night, Chief Cavalieri and I dove more deeply into our reform plan and did a Zoom presentation with the ability of people to ask questions live during the presentation. We only had like one question during the presentation, but we left that link to ask a question up there. I have gotten like one or two others, but I was just able to answer them. They were really inquiring, did you say something about the use of force? And I just explained what we had determined on it. So at this point, we are ready to send in our reform plan to the Office of Budget. It has an April 1st deadline, so we are a little in advance, but just in case there were any complications, we wanted to make sure that we got that in there. So if you look at certification form, we basically had to confirm that the local government has performed a comprehensive review of current police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. We developed a plan, which we will attach. This is all sent digitally to the state. We consulted with stakeholders, including but not limited to membership and leadership of the local police force, members of the community interactions, interested nonprofit and faith-based groups, etc., local district attorney and public defender, etc. And the local government has offered the plan in draft form for public comment to all citizens in the locality, and prior to adoption of the plan by the local legislative body has considered comments and submitted, and the legislative body of the local government has ratified or adopted the plan by local law or resolution. So we need basically a resolution adopting that reform plan, and then I will be and you will also move to certify this. So is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the plan.
By Cindy, second by Jean, I'm sorry, popped up there. All in favor? Aye. So
Aye.
there's the resolution. And for me, to authorize me to sign this certification with those items I enumerated. So is there a motion approving my signing this certification?
So moved.
By
Second.
Richard, second by Mac. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you all. I think this board really did that so responsibly and really took that seriously.
I have a comment.
Mhm.
I think I have to recognize, well, I wish to recognize the job you did doing it, Ellen, because you shepherded the whole thing through, got it done in record time. I think we're one of the few that are finished, and certainly one of the few that have a comprehensive plan that makes sense. As I understand it, our friends down in Oneonta are having severe problems with theirs, and they are nowhere near done. And I think you just did a wonderful, wonderful job with that. As I
Thank you.
told you before, but I think it needs to be said in the meeting.
Thank you so much, Richard. That's very appreciated. Moving on, we also had to update, and it wasn't an emergency preparedness plan. They called it a health emergency plan. And we basically had a template on that. I'd done a webinar on it, and we put that together by in early February. It had to be shared with our union management teams. So it went to our police department and to our DPW. Where they don't necessarily get to approve it, but if they have any questions or concerns, they put them in writing and send them back to us. Chief Cavalieri reported that he'd passed it on to officers Kelman and Severa, and they had no questions. So we're halfway there, and once that's done, it basically is something that gets publicly posted and is utilized by the staff in case of a future health emergency. Kind of using some of the data that we learned this time, but not specifically citing in the document COVID. We need to, under new business, adopt a village election resolution establishing polling place and hours of March 16th, 2021 village election.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Moved by Richard, second by Mac. All in favor?
Aye.
Richard penned this letter that is a very good letter recognizing officers Kelman, Kaminsky, and Otsego County Deputy Keith Sheldon for their actions. So I will let Richard present this. We would like this to be endorsed, approved and endorsed by the entire village board in support of our department.
Does everybody know the incident in question? Okay, so I'll read it. Board of Trustees of Cooperstown, in the strongest possible terms, commend the actions of Cooperstown Police Corporal James Kelman, Officer David Kaminsky, and Otsego County Deputy Sheriff Keith Sheldon for their actions of February 4th, 2021, which resulted in the saving of the life of a Cooperstown resident. Their quick thinking and rapid action saved the man's life. Without their intervention, there was a high probability that he would not have survived. Responding to a report of a suicidal individual, the officers found a man with a deep self-inflicted laceration to his right wrist region. There were large amounts of blood observed throughout the apartment that he was found in. The man reportedly asked to be shot, but the officers told the individual they were going to help him. They quickly determined that the earliest estimated time of arrival of an emergency squad was at least 30 minutes. They then decided to immediately take him to Bassett Hospital, where he was treated. Their efforts saved a life and demonstrated the high level of skill and problem solving we have come to recognize from the members of our police force and the Otsego Sheriff's Department. I move that we accept this letter and we attach all our signatures to it. And we put the copies of the letter in the officers' files and send a copy of the letter to Sheriff Devlin.
There's the motion, and thank you for putting this together, Richard. Second by Jean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ellen, I have one more bit of business by way of commendation. I guess a number of you heard we had a chimney fire at our home last week, and the fire department and the police department both responded with alacrity and thorough professionalism, and were most referring and tending to our concerns. So I wanted that on the record as well. Great job by our safety, fire and safety people.
Thank you, Joe. And we're glad that it went well. We are. We do have one other item under new business, and this went around to everyone, right, Cindy? You're the no smoking and vaping.
It did.
So,
Jean and I were contacted by Jennifer Hill of Tobacco Free Communities, and she contacted us in order to offer new signage, which we have in our parks, but they are willing to expand that signage to include Doubleday Field as well as our Village Hall, indicating no smoking as well as no vaping on those properties. That led to a question in my mind as to how exactly we do that, right? I'm not sure that it's something that we disagree with, but you know, before putting up a sign, we need to make sure that we have the authority and have done this the right way. In the past, there is a clause in our local law that says from time to time, the Board of Trustees can make policies about the use of our public lands, buildings, parks, that type of thing. Many municipalities have gone a step forward, or a step beyond that, and have passed a freestanding local law concerning tobacco use, smoking, and vaping. And I would suggest that it's time that we do that. It puts this issue more in the forefront. It means when people search E-code, which I realize many people don't do, but Tobacco Free Communities does. And you can find a list of municipalities in New York State that have laws regarding tobacco use. And we're not on it because we don't have a law, we have a policy. So I forwarded to you potential wording for a law. I'd like to make a motion that we set a public hearing for our next meeting to consider that.
there's the motion, second by Jean. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a discussion.
Okay.
I think this is a great idea. I want to know if we're going to enforce this. We have a lot of laws that we don't enforce, or the police claim that they have discretion. We passed a law regarding masks, and I don't believe not one person all summer was stopped or cited for it. Are we going to stop? If we do pass this law, how is it going to be enforced? It feels good, it's great, and I love it, but how are we going to enforce it?
Let me just say that there wasn't one person stopped. I would disagree with that. There were patrols by our police, and frequently as they approached an individual, they immediately put up their mask, or if they spoke to them, but they did not cite them. That's different. But that's different. It's like saying.
All right, you're right.
Yep. Okay.
I wasn't aware.
So.
I have a question just in terms of Martin's, our village attorney's review of this before we set a hearing on it.
I have not shown it to him yet. I can tell you that this is a law that's already on the books in other municipalities. So I did not think that it was especially urgent to do it before setting a public hearing.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. So the motion, sorry.
I think Rich is talking, but you're muted, Rich.
How do you propose that this is going to be enforced? What do you propose as penalties?
So I think at our parks like 3 Mile and Ferry Spring, it is enforced by the lifeguards and the caretakers who are there. And I think that's already happening, to be perfectly honest. I don't know
Okay.
that that's a change. I assume at Doubleday Field, the same thing would happen with our staff who are working there. The penalty is actually set largely by New York state law. The part I highlighted in yellow is a part that we don't often include in our laws, but it basically determines the maximum fines for non-felony offenses.
Do you remember what it was?
It's in,
Not to exceed
$100.
$100.
All right.
And I
All right.
believe that's something that's set by the court. So in other words, someone could be issued a citation for violating this, but then like a traffic go to the court.
and I think the public notice of our having the law and the appropriate signage are a great mechanism to induce compliance and reduce the need for enforcement.
I don't want anyone to think I'm against the law. I just want to know, if we do it, that we will enforce it. That's all.
All right, so any more questions? The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor for setting a public hearing for our next March, Jim? Or are you already saying yes? You're already voting. Oh, okay. Please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're moving fast.
Second meeting in a row we've done this.
Upcoming meetings. We could set budget workshops. We will be together on Wednesday for our second budget workshop. I'd sort of like to see what happens there because we are being so prompt and capable on working on our budget that actually might suffice for the essentially end of March 20th tentative budget, and that could become the tentative budget. So it might not have to be deliberated more. We would then have to have a public hearing in April for that budget, and we would we'd still be able to amend and make some changes. So at that time. So, but rather than setting some meetings right now, let's just wait and we'll see how we feel on Wednesday after we commit an hour and 45 minutes to our next budget workshop. So, and
Alan, for I guess for our budget session, but I want to ask you or Cindy if we could get some kind of idea as to when grant funding may be available for body cameras. I feel really passionate about that issue, and if it's going to take, I mean, it just depends. I guess, if it comes out of the legislature or, the governor's office, but, I think that's a really, really important thing. I know we're a small, safe municipality, but, I think that is really important that we do have that. And if we're going to wait, a year or two or something like that for grant funding, I think we should have a discussion about whether or not to allocate the funds for those. I know it's expensive, but it's important.
All right. Why don't we have that budget at our budget meeting? That can be one. I will say, I do think that after all these reform plans across the state have gone in, that and certainly in New York's coffers are in a more stable situation, I do think that we are going to see some grant funds coming forth. I will point out too that there's technology and then there's technology, because probably about 7 years ago, 2013, we had cameras for our officers, but they were not the quality, and the recording equipment wasn't what it should be. And I think they lasted a couple of years. So this is really something you want to buy good technology on, and it is expensive. It is surprising, but it certainly is worth getting it right this time. Yeah. The next question is our next board meeting, which is March 22nd, 2021. Is there any, Richard?
I've had my second COVID shot. Assuming that the caseload does not go up and assuming that we socially distance, I have no objection to having it done in person.
Great,
Of course, I have to be able to get in the building, but I don't know.
great.
I
But yeah, I'm
agree, Rich.
no objection to that.
All right, so it will not be virtual. We will be meeting in person on March 22nd, 2021.
Great.
All right.
I know you all want it then.
I think, it's useful when we want to share a document. We certainly saw that tonight with James sharing those plans, and we can all be looking at the same thing at the same time. But the bottom line is we're detached from the public, and we are, that's who we represent.
Yep.
So, all right. Wow. Well, it wasn't quite as short as last month's, but not bad. If there's nothing else, I adjourn the meeting.
Okay, one thing, everybody, I sent it out. I don't know if you all got it. I invited everybody to this talk at Rotary tomorrow, which is going to be Professor Gretchen Soren from the Cooperstown graduate program, talking about the research and movie Driving While Black in her book. And especially being that this is Black History Month and that it fits into all the social sensitivity that we're doing. If you didn't get an invitation from me and you want to come, please let me know and I'll see that you get one. It'll start about 12:40 tomorrow.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Jen.